In the previous discussions, they presented numbers and values. In this part of our discussion, we are now going to talk more about the risks involved. So, to start off my presentation, I'm going to ask you a question, answerable by yes or no. Can businesses completely avoid business and financial risks? Now, if you are unsure with your answer, don't worry. By the end of this discussion, we can answer this one. So, to continue, business risk and financial risk. So, they are the two different types of warning signs that investors must investigate when considering making an investment. So, to start off, what is business risk and financial risk? So, in business risk, it refers to the risk of which the company's business value can be affected, be it via loss of market share, by new entrants who destroy the business, or by many other forms of market competition. While in financial risk, it is the risk of a company that could not manage its finances and goes bankrupt because of liquidity risk, market risk, or inability to pay back its interests on time, which would probably trigger a fire sale. So that means it's a red flag in the business world. Just like in our personal lives, if we spot a red flag on someone, why would some people would back out and some people would still go for it? Because just like in business, companies still move forward despite business and financial risks because risks are important and part of growth and opportunity. Without taking risks, businesses cannot expand, innovate, or earn profits. Instead of avoiding them, companies focus on managing and minimizing these risks to achieve success. Now let's go back to our question. Is it avoidable? Now for business risk, no. We have listed four reasons why. First, we have the competition. Second, the market demand. Third, operations. And lastly, fourth, management decisions. They cannot be eliminated, only reduced. The next question would be: is financial risk avoidable? The answer is no. We have listed three reasons. First, it involves debt, cash flow, and market fluctuations. Always present, but can be controlled with good financial planning. Then, how long will these risks go for? Business risk and financial risk are both unavoidable but differ in duration. Business risk is a long term, as challenges like competition, market demand, and management issues are always present and require continuous adaptation. Financial risk, on the other hand, may be short term, such as cash flow problems, or long term, such as debt, obligations, and market fluctuations. So, how to handle it? In business risk, systemizing the process of production and operation by minimizing the cost of production and operation. While in financial risk, it is by reducing debt financing and by increasing equity financing. So in business risk, it can be handled by the systemizing of processes of production and operation to ensure consistency, efficiency, and fewer errors. Well organized system reduces uncertainty and makes the business more stable. At the same time, minimizing the cost of production and operation helps the company stay competitive, especially during market fluctuations. Lower costs mean the business can still operate profitability even in sales decrease or competition increases. So, together, these strategies allow companies to manage risks effectively while maintaining long term sustainability. While in financial risk, um, we have here the equity financing. So what is equity financing? So we have here a figure. So equity financing is the process of the sale of an ownership interest to various investors to raise funds for business objectives. One of the advantages of this type of financing is that the money that has been raised from the market does not have to be repaid, unlike debt financing, which has a definite repayment schedule. So, equity financing can come from any source, be it a friend or an entity. There are investors who are ready to spend on budding firms in the form of investments. So, in the process, the companies make available their shares to people who are interested in investing in the company. So, the IPOs or the initial public offering become the best way to invite investments from individuals and entities. They buy shares of the companies that appear fruitful to them. As the company grows and progresses and performs well, making profit, the investors are open to receiving returns in proportion to the investment they made in the company. So, how to measure business and financial risk? So, in business risk, it shows that business risk can be measured by looking at the variability in EBIT or the earnings before interest and taxes. So, if EBIT fluctuates a lot, it means the company's operations face higher uncertainty and risk. On financial risk, it explains that it can be measured using the debt asset ratio and the financial leverage multiplier. So these indicators show how much of the company's assets are financed by debt and how heavily it relies on borrowed funds, which increases financial vulnerability. In short, EBIT variability measures business risk, while ratios and leverage measure financial risk. So we have here an example of the earnings before interest and taxes. So for an example, a company sells 1 million pesos worth of products in a year. So let's say that the operating expenses such as salaries, rent, utilities, and raw materials is equal to 600,000. And the depreciation would be 50,000 pesos. So with the earnings before interest and taxes formula, which is equals to sales minus operating expenses minus depreciation. So our EBIT is equal to 1 million pesos minus 600,000 minus 50,000, which equals to 350,000 pesos. So this 350,000 pesos shows the company's earnings from operations before paying interest on loans and taxes. So, what if a company earns different revenues over 3 years? So, for example, in year one, the sales is 1 million pesos. So, operating costs with a total of 650,000. So, the EBIT would be 350,000. In year two, sales drop to 80 or 800,000 pesos. The operating costs is 600,000. So, with the formula, the EBIT would be 200,000 pesos. In year three, sales rise to 1,200,000. With the operating costs of 700,000, the EBIT would be 500,000. So next is an example of debt asset ratio. So we have here a formula of debt asset ratio is equal to total debt over total assets. So for an example, we have a total assets of 1 million pesos and a total debt of 400,000 pesos. So with the formula, 400,000 pesos of total debt over 1 million pesos of total assets, the answer would be zero point 0.4 or 40%. So this means 40% of the company's assets are financed through debt. A higher ratio indicates higher financial risk. Now, for an example of the financial leverage multiplier or FLM. So we have here the total assets over the total equity. So, for an example, the total assets is 1 million pesos and the total equity is 600,000 pesos. With the formula of total assets over total equity, which is equal to 1 million pesos over 600,000 is equal to 1.67. So this means for every 1 peso of equity, the company controls 1.67 pesos of assets. The higher the multiplier, the more debt the company is using, increasing financial risk. So, in conclusion, business risk and financial risk can happen together, but for different reasons. Business and financial risks are inevitable, with business risk arising from market uncertainties and operations, and financial risk coming from debt and financial obligations. While these risks cannot be fully avoided, they can be managed through efficiency, planning, and strategy. This understanding leads to the idea of the optimal capital structure, which is the right balance of debt and equity that allows a company to maximize its value while minimizing the cost of capital, ensuring both stability and long term growth. And that connects to our next topic,